choices. We know you have choices, and you're still with us. And you have been with the mailbox for over the last 11 years. Totally appreciate your support. We're talking about the topic mentorship. Now, mentorship is to develop the whole person. The techniques employed are broad and require wisdom to be appropriately used. The next generation of men will need all the assistance they can receive in order to be successful. And we do want our boys to men to be very successful. We will explore the possible factors contributing to the high levels of crime and violence being carried out by mostly males in society. Can mentorship be the answer to curb these negative behaviors? Courtney, what do we say?
That's incisive and big question, actually. And we're hoping we'll be able to dissect this and ensure that we get to see and to find out how can we really mend the situation. Do we have to use some form of what we tend to call stitches to ensure we fix the problem? Our guest this evening is the Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer, and he is the head, I believe, of Every Home for Christ. Let me tell you a bit about Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. He's a minister with the New Testament Church of God for the past 28 years, where he served in a number of capacities, including National Youth and Christian Education Director and Director of Ministerial Care and Development. Dr. Plummer currently serves as National Secretary Treasurer of the New Testament Church of God. He is also the country representative of Every Home for Christ. There we got it. An international ministry that provides resources and training in prayer, evangelism, discipleship, Christian education, children ministry, and mentorship. Dr. Plummer earned a doctorate degree in educational leadership from the Delaware State University and serves the education sector through the Art NSTA. He is married to Paula, and they are the proud parents of 3 sons.
Yes, I know Dr. Orville pretty well. At one point, we were next door neighbors, and I am very privileged and honored. Welcome, Dr. Reverend Orville Plummer. Welcome to the mailbox, sir.
My brother Kevin, thank you. I'm Courtney. I appreciate the opportunity to share on this platform.
Good afternoon, sir. It's good to have you. Great to have you. I was wondering if the names of your sons were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But we will hear what their names are and not assume. Dr. Orwell, I'm happy when we have guests like you because you're the ones answering the questions. So, indeed. Man, remember, we want to hear from you. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM. Remember, you can leave your comments via WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125. We're also on TikTok at Love 101 FM. Kev.
That's right. So, ladies, what Uno say? This is your time to participate. The question we're asking you, ladies, can mentorship be the answer to curb some of the negative behaviors being exhibited by males? Ladies, we're going to ask you to respond. Can mentorship be the answer to curb some of the negative behaviors being exhibited by males? And you can participate in the program by leaving us a message via our WhatsApp, our Facebook, YouTube. Remember, females, no calls or voice notes. Allow the men them to do that. Allow the man them to call in. Allow the man them to do the voice notes. But you have alternative ways of reaching us. And please, we're asking you, we really enjoy your support as well. So, Reverend Plummer, we have a little thing that we do where we give the man them a shout out. And I know we're now inveigling you to talk patois. So this is what we normally say after 3. We're gonna say Mandea, right? Is really a shout out for them to know men are very present in the place. So we're gonna ask you to join us after three. One, two, three.
Mandela.
Mandela! Yes, man is in the place. Men are very, very present. Before we head into the main discussion, it's now time for us to get into the segment that we dub draft, where we preliminarily open the way to our main segment. So we want to ask Dr. Orville Plummer, and just briefly before we get into the meat of the matter, can mentorship be the answer to curb some of the negative behaviors being exhibited by our males? What's your perspective?
I think definitely. I will go further. I think it's the main strategy to do that. It's not just if it can. I think if we're gonna help our males to be more responsible and to perform in keeping with their calling of men, then mentorship. And it's a funny that how the word connects to men, and so I think it is definitely in my mind, the main strategy to be used. We have seen it um, biblically used. We have seen it in other culture. We have seen it in sports. We have seen it in business, and I think it has caused the even the prevalence of crime and violence. One of the reasons why crime and violence persist in Jamaica is because of the type of mentorship that the gangs
Mm,
provide. And so you see once a Don or somebody else is moved out of the way, there are 30 or 20 or 15, any amount of men, young men getting ready to take over that position because in that culture, there's a well structured mentorship program, and it is in the dance hall. I mean, if you talk about the prolific bounty killer, how many other DJs they have mentored, cartel the same way. And I think that it has been used in positively in negative ways. It has been used successfully in negative ways, but we refuse to use it successfully in positive ways. I believe that anywhere mentorship is used, whether in a negative context or a positive context, it's going to be effective.
mm. Wow. Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah.
Probably before we even get into the main thing, uh, give us a brief description of mentorship in your estimation. I
Well,
know we did a good prologue on it, but I want to hear from you. What would you describe as mentorship?
mentorship is a more experience, a more skill, a more mature um, person providing guidance and nurturing and training to a person who is less skilled, less mature. So there are different types of mentorship. There's a mentor who's a guide. There's a mentor who's a coach. There's a mentor who's a supporter. And biblically speaking, the concept of discipleship is the same concept of mentoring. So
Mhm.
when Jesus um, met the disciples or the fishermen, to be biblically correct, what he did was to enter into a mentorship relationship when he said, "Come, follow me, and I will make you." And so the concept of mentorship is basically, as I said, a more mature, a more skilled, a more experienced person providing that level of guidance to somebody who is less skilled, less mature, and it can be applied right across in almost any context of human relationships.
Thank you, Dr. Plomo. I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Why is it that it appears that we have not been using this strategy with our boys to men in
Yeah.
Jamaica? And
Yeah.
I'm just saying it appears that we have not been doing so because of the results we're seeing,
Mhm.
which is, violence, crime,
Yeah.
men exiting tertiary education, not actively in the labor force, man on the corner, man in prison, and so what has happened there from your
Yeah.
evaluation, your
I
perspective?
think it's a number of factors. As I said, and I want to reiterate, mentorship is actively being used in context of sports. It is very much being used in the context of the music business. It is being used. It is being used in some corporate spaces. Most companies have a mentorship program, and definitely it is being used in gangs and that kind of setting. So it is very widely used in Christian circles and other circles. It is not widely used, and a part of it, one of the reasons, is homophobia. There
Mm,
is a tendency, or some folks not willing to develop that one-on-one or small group relationship because of how it may appears and so on. In the context of church and other activities like that, we tend to focus on program rather than relationship.
mm,
Mentorship is
mm,
not just a program, it's a relationship, and
mm.
that's what is missing a lot in the context where it is more needed.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. The program is The Mailbox. We're speaking with Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. He's a country representative for Ever Home for Christ. With me is Kevin Bailey. We're coming up, and this is actually our first break for the afternoon. It's 5:45 p.m. We'll soon come back right after these messages.
Yes. Get a Samsung A05 from Flow for $8,125 or a Samsung A05s for only $9,000. Both come with a free 28-day unlimited social talk and text plan. Now that's great news. Visit a Flow store today. Available while stocks last. Conditions apply.
Boss, we're gonna need some solid PVC pipes and conduits. Then all PVC pipe not solid. No man, solid brand. They make it right here in Jamaica. Them cheaper and it's good quality pipe. Well, that is some solid advice. All right, how much we need?
Solid PVC pipes and conduits manufactured in Jamaica and available at all hardware stores across the island. Buy Jamaican, employ Jamaicans, and build Jamaica. Ask for solid PVC pipes and conduits and save. Call 876-937-5099 to place your orders today. Manufactured by Fosrich.
Labor Day sale.
What appealed to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Welcome,
Yes. Strong
strong
one.
man, integrity man. I am a man. Well, many mighty men are in the place. And so, welcome back. This is the mailbox. Here every Wednesday on the family station, Love 101 FM at 5:30. Unless there is a public holiday, we are very present. Well, we are very privileged and honored to have our very special guest, Reverend Dr. Orville Taylor. Orville Plummer. Plummer. Why am I giving him Taylor? Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. He is the um, representative for every home for Christ, every home for Christ. And we'll have some more information on that. And interestingly, Courtney, you spoke about mentorship and the difference between program and relationship. I think that is pretty significant because many times we're focused on the program, and the
Yes.
program is very essential, very useful. And yet, if we're going to be successful in having this mentorship program doing well or mentors doing very well, then we have to form relationship. I thought that's very significant. Welcome back, Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. And I was just saying it's so significant. You made a difference between the program and the relationship. And before we continue, because we're going to ask you some more questions and that, but to get a feel of who you are, where you're coming from, because, when we read your bio and profile, it just seemed that, man, you have just been extremely successful. You have done some fantastic things. And we wonder if you were born with gold spoon in your mouth. And so can you share with us your upbringing, where you were born, early childhood experiences, a little bit to know the person we're having this conversation with?
Thanks, Kevin. I didn't born with a gold or not even a wooden spoon in my mouth. I'm from Maypen, Clarendon, and I grew up in tough community. People would be aware of places like Effortville, Farm, and also Oliver Gardens. And so my parents were not any rich or just, I would call it, just working class folks. My father was very involved in sports and, you know, SDC, that kind of social development thing. Um, I was exposed to a lot of bigger guys. I could play some football. The word could very early. So I spent a lot of time with older men, older guys older than me. And I think most of what I learn in life is out of that context of relating with older guys, and also um, went to Mapen Primary, passed common entrance to Glenmuir, which I think even now is a very good school. Um, Again, played a lot of football. I was one of the youngest person to ever play football there. I think I started to play the Costa Cup at 13. Again, spending time around football. So a lot of what I learn is not from my scholastic or academic pursuit. A lot of what I learn in life is out of the game of sports and working with team. I captained the football team for 2 years, and then I also, on leaving school, I went to the RM court. I worked there for a time. Then I worked in the bauxite industry, again with older guys. So most of my activities have been with men older than me. And again, I learned from that. Got called to ministry in my early 20s, and sojourned to JTS, where I did program. I think that's place where I first met Kevin, Robin and Kevin. I was a rave at that time, and so on. And so I interact with a lot of cross-denominational persons, from, missionary, associate gospel, brethren, the whole thing. So I left seminary and then started pastoral work. Did a lot of youth work. Also, I pastored in places like Addo in Westmoreland, Ramble in Hanover. Then I came to Mountain View. I worked in Mountain View for that, maybe one of my toughest pastorate, crime and violence and all that kind of thing. And we have to survive there. I pastored in Porus in Manchester, Old Harbour in St. Catherine, again, Central Village, another tough neighborhood. And at that time also, while pastoring, I've always, most of my stint, I work as a guidance counselor in schools, including Manchester High, and tough school, including Tivoli, Penwood, Pembroke Hall. And so I learn a lot from those inner city type school. And I here am I now. I think I'd served 4 years as ministerial care and development. That is working with supporting ministers and our retirees. And now I serve as the National General Secretary of the Church, including my role, including some strategic um, operational issues, administration, overseeing finance. And I also, since 2012, work in management with Heart, NSDA Trust. Again, getting a lot of experience with a wide cross section. I currently, as you mentioned, serve with Every Home for Christ, which I embrace fully now as a real ministry supporting churches, parachurch organization with a wide range of resources for children ministries, youth ministries, and I must mention mentorship. We have a resource that is developed by John Maxwell called Lead Today, and it's really about mentoring and nurturing young people to be leaders based on biblical principles and so on. And so these resources are available to not just the body of Christ, but any organization that works with young people. We believe it has some gem inside there that can help with leadership development of young people. So, in a nutshell, you mentioned already I'm married to Paula. My wife is a school principal, and I have 3 sons. That is my major mentoring platform as I seek to raise them up to be successful and godly young men.
Wonderful resume, Dr. Flomo. Kevin sort of alluded to something that I want to ask. Were there any particular struggles that you may have had that you had to overcome? We like to hear how you overcame, you know, like the
Well,
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
well, I think right throughout. I mean, um, early on, I've been at the time I go to Glenmore, it still is an elite school, and so I wasn't well resourced, and so I had to deal with surviving in that context of a lot of affluence and surviving and doing well. Also, the issue of peer pressure up to, I tell people all the while, up to fourth form, my average was nothing above 50 because I had to give a lot of trouble. I mean, keep a lot of bad companies and also at the same time playing football and so it's in my fourth form just before CXC. I had to kind of just settle down and buckle down and get some subjects and then that changed a trajectory in terms of my life. So, I mean, I grew up normal, not privileged, have to struggle with lack of resources and that kind of thing. So I'm not no gold spoon around here.
No, certainly hearing, your early childhood experiences and the challenges.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Courtney, he
Mhm.
has an amazing wife and three
Yeah.
great sons. If I remember the names is Joel, Jesu, and is Jamar.
Yeah, but Kevin, you're good, man. You're good, man.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that's yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. But
I, I,
I want to make a plug for mentorship there because
yes.
I think I mean part of my own development is benefit from persons who have provided me with mentorship. So I speak of person, the late Ken Ragunath. In fact, Ken
Mm,
was leader of this Every Home for Christ. Ken came when I was in Bible school from Trinidad. I think Kevin, you must know Ken Ragunath. Ken
yes.
was in TGST. I think he
Ah,
may have come later, but he's from Trinidad, the Indo Trinidadian,
mhm.
and really provide some support. I have pastors like Keith Williams, Dr. W. A. Blair. I mean, that would provide that kind of a handholding and support throughout ministry. So I don't know. I don't know of anybody who's successful in any field, any man who has been successful in any field without some amount of people investing in them at different pathway in their lives. And I'm certainly I would have benefited from that.
Thank you
No.
very much, Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. It's 6 p.m. right
Ah,
here on Love 101. We're going to take a break and come right back with our guest. The topic is mentoring. Our guest is the Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer, Kevin Bailey, and Courtney Morrison here on the Love 101. The mailbox. Come right back after these messages.
I am a man. I am a man. Mindset Conference 2024, the Gospel Edition, Monday to Wednesday, May 20 to 22, at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, with Pastor John Gray, Pastor Travis Green, Dr. Jackie Green, Todd Galbert, Phil Thomas, Minister Marion Hall, Kevin Downswell, Sherry Gardner, Rhoda Isabella, Pastor Junior Tucker, Bishop Everton Thomas, and many more. Join us for dinner, workshop, panel discussions, praise and worship, undiluted word, and concert every night. Mindset Conference. For more info, mindsetconference.org. Get your tickets now. It's not over.
Listen to words of upliftment in Something More with Bishop Harold Blair, brought to you by the Faith Cathedral Deliverance Center.
And he cried out to God. Have you been there? Have you been there when it seems as if you've been left all alone and no one cares for you? No one gives to your word of comfort or consolation. But as you lift up your eyes to the hills from whence cometh your help, the Lord heard your cry.
That's Something More with Bishop Harold Blair. Something More comes to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
It's not over till it's over. It ain't over yet. Oh, it's not over.
Boss, we're gonna need some solid PVC pipes and conduits.
Then all PVC pipe no solid.
No man, solid brand. They make it right here in Jamaica. Them cheaper and it's good quality pipes.
Well, that is some solid advice. All right, how much we need?
Solid PVC pipes and conduits manufactured in Jamaica and available at all hardware stores across the island. Buy Jamaican, employ Jamaicans, and build Jamaica. Ask for solid PVC pipes and conduits and save. Call 876-937-5099 to place your orders today. Manufactured by Fosrich.
Welcome back.
I am a man, yes. Strong one.
Welcome back to the mailbox. I'm Courtney Morrison. Just want to remind you, the mailbox is brought to you today by Solid PVC Pipes, manufactured in Jamaica by Fosrich Company Limited. The topic today for us on the mailbox is mentorship. Our guest, Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer, who is a minister in the New Testament Church of God for the past 28 years, is here with us today. He's also the country representative of Every Home for Christ. He's in international ministry that provides resources and training in prayer, evangelism, discipleship, Christian education, children ministry, and mentorship. Before we went for the break, Dr. Plummer, I believe you were speaking to probably some of those who have mentored you, some of those who have played a pivotal role in carrying you to where you are today. Tell us about those changes. Tell us about who some of those persons are and the mentorship that occurred that
Yeah.
brought about the change.
So if I would go back and just looking back, and this is a point I made in most of the presentation, um, structurally and how God ordained it, your parents, especially the male, the father should be the first mentor in providing that kind of a guidance and so on. You have seen it in Abraham, Isaac. You see that entire trajectory of how that is done. And I think my father was very, very involved in organization and sport and those things. And he brought me in very, very early. And a lot of my organizational leadership skills were not developed in whether seminary or college, but on the ground, organizing, setting up fixtures, logistics, and so on. And I think that is something that a lot of males are missing with the absent. That's why the absent of the father or a male figure in those early stages of development is so crucial, because who will provide that? And I would have had that in hindsight, looking back with my father in high school. My football coaches, the persons who provide coach Ian Harris, Dino Green, they were really, I played football for 5 consecutive years. Every summer, I would have been with them, learning strategy and, doing, um, running up and down. We used to have something called fartlet. We used to having to do, and that kind of a discipline, but the care and concern that they offered. So Ian Harris um, and Bravo Green would have been pivotal in my early high school. Then, in as I said, in seminary, um, and mentorship is a very dynamic thing, because it don't have to be a continuous thing. It could just be a one-off experience that is so what you call dynamic, and with that mentorship, it become like even a role modeling. Back in seminary, we have persons like Delano Palmer. You're familiar with Del, and and the irascible um, Garnet Roper. I mean, because they're not just teachers and lecturers, but we used to play football and domino and talk politics and so on. There's another um, teacher we had named Tim Hurdle, was from the States, very good. And so we had that, and it's a big thing when we don't have those male presence in education. We have people, that were so dynamic that you learn from them and they impact um, your life. I mean, even Chisholm, philosopher Chisholm, was somebody we interact with in the context of seminary, and that was just life changing and transformational. In ministry, starting ministry, I have a pastor friend of mine named Irville Campbell. Used to just travel all over, and that's a part of mentorship, going on ministry journey, learning from him and so on. And I've also exposed, as I said, to Keith Williams, who pastored the Clifton Church when I pastored the Mountain View Church, and he took me on, even though he called me son. And again, while I was in seminary, I latched myself onto Reverend Graham, who was at the Eastwood Park Church for about 3-4 years. And, so there's a number. I don't want to start and leave out names. W.A. Blair, I work with him, and, studies leadership, develop a type of leadership, some of what I learned from him. And there's also peer mentorship, because you sometimes model a friend or a brother that you were closely with. So my brother Roy Notice, who's now the administrative bishop, we go way back. We have, from our days in youth camp, to be working in camps, and he was youth director. I became youth director. So we have a whole culture of mentorship through our youth department, starting from Ronald Blair to Archibald. Then it comes in more modern time. to Donald Roberts, to Barrington Brown, to Wayne Vernon, to Roy Notice, to myself, and all of that experience and that stacking on,
Mm,
training on each other, I think would have helped. So I think that there are one way to look at mentorship is a formal program, but a better way to look at mentorship is just your everyday interaction and nurturing from each other, which is more informal and cultural. And as I mentioned, is not now a program that you are following these one, two, three steps, but is really a relationship
mhm,
that is nurturing. And sometimes that relationship is reciprocal because you can
mhm.
have peer mentorship. You are adding something value to another brother is adding value to you. And that's we have seen that in Paul and Barnabas, and you have seen that
Yeah.
in Jonathan and David. And so these are biblical examples
Mhm.
and principles that is at present in our natural life. Mhm.
Very, very, very comprehensive. Really appreciate the way you articulated that,
Mhm.
and I'm
Mhm.
sure our listeners are
Mhm.
benefited. Know how the mentoring work out in practical ways. What if somebody doesn't want to be mentored? And I'm asking this
Mhm.
now in the sense that there is this thinking by many
Mhm.
Jamaicans that our boys to men do not want to be mentored. Like like it's so much work, and these guys, man, them gone too bad, man. Them really can't be restored and be mentored. What's your take on this, Reverend Dr. Orville
Well,
Plummer?
I think, and Kevin, you're a psychologist. I think one of the greatest need and maybe a crisis that face a lot of our boys in particular is what is called father hunger. Father hunger. Many don't know their father, and if they didn't know their father, don't have that relationship, and there may not be a positive male in their life. So if you look on the language of our men, wagwan father, wam dads, wagwan uncle, wam big man, this is a yearning for somebody above them. Again, if we bring that down to Bible, we call Abba Father. There is a natural yearning. Biologically, a mother nurture a child 9 months and coming and so on. But as a child is born, the first person that child call in any language, Spanish, French, Patois, is father, dada, papa. And so there is that natural yearning for that male presence. In the case of the men, it is there. So it is my view that most male would want a positive male person. In fact, it's almost impossible not to have it, because if you don't have a positive, then what takes that place of that positive is the don or the gang leader or some other male, because there is that vacuum of presence that must be filled. There's no two ways about it. If you look in the community and you see male, they're group up, they're clan up, and they are nurtured, they're playing or they're smoking or they're doing something. That's natural. So I think that what a lot of male don't like is a formal, too much of the formal structure. And this program, them have to come this way and they have to dress this way and whatever. That is why sports is such a important avenue to provide that mentorship, because in sport you have a kind of a structure, but it is engaging, it is activity, it is fun, and you can pack on a lot of content there in terms of that. And so I think, in the context, especially of church and so on, I think we have to be very deliberate about it. If you think about scripture, Jesus at 12 was sitting with some men, asking question, answering question. And that's a model of mentorship where they are resourceful men that are present in the life of our boys, that they can answer and ask the questions of life. And that's what Jesus was doing. And we see that mindset. Luke don't tell us not more about Jesus until he was about 30, 34. What he says is what? He increased in wisdom, in stature, in favor with God. And I'm telling you from that interaction that Jesus had, those are the type of interaction that made him into the successful male he was. You see the same thing with Paul and Timothy. You see the same thing with Elijah. And we see that right through in the corporate. Some of the biggest business people, like Bill Gates, was mentored by Warren Buffett. Hmm? And Zuckerberg, Facebook guy and Twitter guy, was mentored by Jobs from Apple. And if you think about Oprah, was mentored by Maya Angelou. So it is something that is used. If we think about Grace Kennedy, I keep on pointing to people about Grace Kennedy. Grace Kennedy have mentorship as a part of their leadership development. So if you remember, young Don Webby was mentored by Douglas Orain. And so anywhere mentorship is used in the context of male development, it is bound to be successful. And it's just that we need that level of commitment. Sometimes as men, we don't have that commitment to nurture and because it's an investment. It means that we're taking some of what we have, some of our resources, our experiences, resources, sometimes financial, and willing to pour in to somebody else. And I think if we start it and develop a culture, I may say, Courtney and Kevin, in fact, we really can't, if we are doing church and discipleship is not the key part of it, I don't know what it is, because the key to church and Christian relationship and Christian nurturing is discipleship, stroke mentorship, which is the same thing.
Sir
So,
Plummer, Sir
Yes,
Plummer,
yes.
a pause there because we
yeah,
have to take, I think this is our final
yeah.
break. So, you have been listening to the mailbox, Kevin and Courtney, with our guest, Reverend Dr. Arville Plummer. Go to studio. We'll be right back after this.
Receive words of strength from the voice of power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis.
The gospel of seed has been declared many years ago and is still raging. Jesus returns, but I know who has already won the war. I know who has already won the war.
That's the voice of power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries International in Portland. Voice of Power comes to you every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. right here on the Family Station. Love 101.
Boss, we're gonna need some solid PVC pipes and conduit. Then PVC pipes are solid. No man, solid brand. They make it right here in Jamaica. Them cheaper and it's good quality pipe. Well, that is some solid advice. Alright, how much we need?
Solid PVC pipes and conduits manufactured in Jamaica and available at all hardware stores
Good evening. Welcome back to the mailbox. Welcome back to the mailbox. I'm Courtney Morrison along with Kevin Bailey. The program is the mailbox. Our guest, Reverend Dr. Orville Taylor. He's a country representative of Every Home for Christ, and he is as minister for the New Testament Church of God. I'm hoping I'm being heard. I'm not sure. Before we went for the break, you alluded to the first mentor in the home being father, parent, and there's a yearning for that. I hope elder is one of those categories that, apart from big man and them things, that person's state and because I'm being called elder so often these days. Yet it is true. Research has shown that fatherlessness is one of the key indicators as to a child becoming either more violent or is going to end up in one of our penal institutions. That's what it shows. Uh, so we've been talking about mentorship being an aid to solving. Talk to us a bit more about that in this final segment as to the practical steps. How do we go about ensuring that mentorship helps in this regard, especially when it comes on to crime and violence and our boys to men?
Yeah, thank you. And again, like most things, we have to start very early, because um, no boy or no male child born at Jubilee or Princess Margaret or Mapen Hospital, when that child comes out, there's no tag on that child to say, here is a criminal, here's a murderer. Um, we don't have that. And so persons become who they are, based on their own experience, what they get or what they didn't get. So I think that we have to start very, very early in the early childhood age of to ensure that, especially where there is not a positive male presence, a father in the home, places like schools and, of course, churches should provide what you call those proxy parent, a male, to ensure that there is that stimulation. And I'm talking the context of men now. And so, um, sports, as I mentioned earlier, especially at the teenage years, sports and involvement with young men is critical for discipline and also for guidance. If they listen to a coach and the coach teach them how to score a goal or how to tackle another opponent, that coach can guide them in other areas of their lives. And so, I think in the context of church, I think every young person, primarily male, should have a person who provide that level of guidance. We also create a vacuum because yes, we provide some sort of a support at early childhood, at teenage, but the critical period, Kevin, after 18, when they are now making life choices and more of you, sometimes that's where the gap is. So my view is that at every stage of the life cycle of a male, there should be a mentor. Even for us who are in leadership, it is very important that you have somebody who you're accountable to, somebody who can speak truth in your life, and somebody who's is looking out for you, unconditionally. So my thing is that we should have a lifelong approach, to mentorship, starting from early childhood, teenage, young adult, right up.
Thank you so much, Brother Plummer. How does Every Home for Christ function? How can it help? Persons who are listening want to make
Yes,
connect with you.
yes,
Just share a little bit how you
yes.
operate, and the benefits so that
All
persons
right.
can get that.
So currently, what we do is provide resources and training. So currently, we are working with the New Testament Church, Open Bible Church, Missionary Church, Church of God of Prophecy, and another that is and Church of God in Jamaica. And so we provide resources for evangelism, as I said, for discipleship, Christian education, and also mentorship. And so basically, what we do is establish what we call a ministry partnership agreement, MPA, with the head of the denomination or any local church. And right now in our storeroom, the New Testament Church provide that storage at Olaba. We have a number of resources that are ready for distribution. We have, I must say, some conference coming up where we will be providing training information. Those conference will be from the 19th in Montego Bay at the Hope Bible Church in Montego Bay, and then on the 20th um, of June in the Maypen New Testament Church, and then the Saturday 22nd at Boulevard Open Bible, where our Caribbean director and our director in Guyana and Suriname will be joining me in talking more about the ministry. And we are looking also of providing resources. We have some special resources for prisons because that's another area that we have to minister to in men. I mean, if you hear the story of Malcolm X, Malcolm X was rescued from a life of crime through the context of Muslim because they provide him with resources and training until while he was in prison. And I think that we have to be a little bit more strategic with our males in prison. So any local church, any pastor, any parachurch organization, Youth for Christ, Child Evangelism Fellowship, who wants to make contact with us, they can reach me at 299-9750, and we will arrange for resource material that can help in their ministry. And we also can provide mentorship training. Just last Sunday, I was with the Kentire Church, Kentire New Testament, in providing them a training on mentorship. And so we also provide mentorship training, how you put it together a program, what are the elements, how do you screen mentors, parental consent of your teenagers, and really just give some practical guidance in terms of mentorship. So we provide training, and not only the training, but we provide ton loads of resources.
Reverend Plummer, could you say those numbers again?
All right.
Yes, so our audience
Okay.
can get them. Yeah,
So
for
it's
the
876-299-9750, and that's also WhatsApp. And my email address is oaplummer, Plummer, at gmail.com. And so I hope to come back to Love and to talk about the conferences that we'll be having, and to further elucidate on that. But we expect to have some great turnout as we interact across denominations and ministries.
Excellent, excellent. We've been speaking to the Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer. Uh, 30 seconds. Just a word of encouragement. 30 seconds. Time has run out. It's now 6:28. And
yes.
it's time to wrap.
Well, I think mentorship is a model for moral, social, spiritual formation. Jesus said, "Come, follow me, and I will make you." And we have seen that trajectory, what that has happened. Paul also said, "Follow me as I follow Christ." And so there is a pathway where positive male influence in this context can, I believe, create a different pathway, a more positive pathway for our male. And I think, again, I said it's not just a strategy. I think it's a leading strategy for male development and development.
Awesome, awesome. We want to say thanks to Dr. Nadine Blair, our operations program manager, Jeremy Johnson, our producer, Timoy Butler for technical support, Raquel Robertson for digital media, and thanks to you, Reverend Dr. Orville Plummer, for being here with us out of your schedule. And indeed, we are privileged and honored to have you as our guest. We end the show with this quote: when someone makes a mistake, don't rub it in, rub it out. And this was said by the late Uriel Salmon. Kev.
Yes, and thanks to Kareem Campbell for assisting us with technical support today as well. And this was the program designed for men with guests who are men. The mailbox was brought to you today by Solid PVC Pipes, manufactured in Jamaica by Fosrich Company Limited.
Blessings. And so we say catch you next week. Same place, same time inside the mailbox. Monday.
Yeah.
Monday.
Thanks, Rev.
Yeah.
Bless.
Receive words of strength